I'm just now going through the audiobook of the Tim McMahon Luka book, and kind of going at a slower pace. But it's to Luka's rookie year, and it's just about how big of an a-hole Rick Carlisle was. And seeing him in the finals, I think a lot of people may have a little revisionist history of how his career ended here in Dallas, because I think we all agreed it was time for him to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. You know, like you can say that he was an asshole. It was time for him to go. He may have, I don't know, run this guy or that guy out of town on the staff, while also saying, like, he's an awesome coach. He got the most out of his teams here, post-championship and championship. And, yeah, it may be a little bit complicated, but at the end of the day, like, he's a Mavs legend.
For sure.
He's a Mavs legend.
He wasn't – I thought the bottom line was it wasn't working with Luka, and you choose the superstar over the coach.
Right.
If it's not working, even if it's a great coach. And that's the way it was viewed. And yes, when he left, a lot of the stuff wasn't only that it was time, but hey, actually this guy was kind of an a-hole.
But it was so everything though. It was Haralabob and Donnie. You know, like everything was happening at once. And if you listen to Haralabob now, he speaks the most highly of Rick. Now everybody's got their favorites or whatever, but Haralabob will say, "Look, I know how people perceive the guy, but he'll listen to a new idea." And that's obviously evidenced by the success he's had elsewhere coaching. So.
Well, in the end, he's pragmatic.
Right.
He is kind of a controlling guy, and he doesn't play young players a lot, but he's got an eye for talent. He knows basketball, and like immediately, remember, because I think there was a thing early with Dennis Smith Jr.'s career where he wasn't playing him enough or something, and people were wondering about, he just doesn't like young players. That's not the kind of coach he is. When they won the championship, that was a real veteran-laden team. There was no guys he was bringing. He's always been bad with young players. Luka comes in. He immediately recognizes, you know what? I've got a lot of philosophies about defense, and that's the most – Nico, that's the most important thing, and that's how we win. Actually, I'm going to kind of leave it to this guy. Why even tell him what to do offensively? I don't understand how he's so awesome, and we're going to become an offensive juggernaut. And that's the way we'll win games, by outscoring people. And then they have one of the best offenses in the NBA, as I recall.
Yeah.
And
they did that a couple different times,
and
too.
yeah, Haralabob, that's a good example, because Haralabob, from what I understand, and even Haralabob would probably tell you, I'm not like a people person. I'm not shoddy.
Right.
I'm not a guy. I don't want to have dinner with you. We're not going to get along. I'm not worried about our friendship. I'm worried about numbers and this and what's going to make the team better. And ultimately, I think that's Rick Carlisle too. And he thought, okay, this guy does have some stuff I can use. I'm going to use. It's using all your resources. So yeah, Rick Carlisle was great, and then he finds himself in this situation, and he's worked that to. Seemingly to the best you could with that.
Yeah.
You know, he's brought that talent as far as you can bring it, which might even be the whole thing.
So I didn't know this. Haralabob only took the Mavs job if they drafted Luka.
Yeah,
Like
I mean
he waited until after the draft.
he doesn't. Well, he waited till after the draft to take the job officially, but he is a big part of the reason they took Luka, because he'd been working for Mark for a few years, and I actually think Haralabob,
But officially coming in the building, all that.
I think he could pound his chest over Luka a little more. He doesn't. There's a lot of people that'll claim Luka. Donnie for sure. I mean, he should. He made the trade, but Haralabob was a big part of that. Yeah.
And the second thing is that I'm glad you brought up Dennis Smith Jr. because, he did play a lot his rookie year, but in listening to the book, it was only because the Mavs were trying to tank.
Carlisle hated him.
Yes, had they been somewhat of a contender,
Who hated him?
Carlisle hated Dennis Smith from the night of the draft on, or at least that's what everybody says.
And this first clip from the Luka book written by Tim McMahon, he kind of tries to drive a wedge between Dennis Smith and Luka, and this is after the fourth game of the year. So the fourth game in Luka's career, he's having to go through this with his coach. And I will change the source.
I blame Dart.
Right now.
Carlisle made it clear, clip after clip, that the kind of effort he saw in Atlanta was completely unacceptable. Suddenly, Carlisle paused the video and declared that he needed to address the elephant in the room. He called out Smith in front of the entire team and basketball staff for being jealous of Doncic.
Which is pretty strong to do.
Yeah.
And now the book, it goes on to explain that Luka and Dennis Smith were extremely cool. Not roommates, but lived in the same building, played a lot of video games. They got along well. So this kind of came out of left field. And another funny thing about this book is this guy tries to do his best Dennis Smith Jr. impersonation.
Yeah, I remember listening to this, and yeah, you can tell the guy's not exactly familiar with basketball culture.
Of Doncic. Smith snapped back at the coach. What? We real cool, Smith said.
Yo, dog.
He's probably just having to read the quote, but still, I don't know if you have to do the
Smith
voice.
snapped back
We
at the
real
coach.
cool.
What? We real cool, Smith said, genuinely surprised by Carlisle's assertion. With a confused look toward Doncic, Smith asked if there were any issues he wasn't aware of. A shocked Doncic shook his head, appalled that his coach seemed determined to drive a wedge between himself and his teammate.
So yeah, within 5 games, now he's got to do this mental game of, I'm friends with this guy, the coach. I don't know, just not the best situation for Luka to jump into, I don't think.
Yeah, it was weird, and I remember like people saying that in Europe the coaches will get on your ass. Like, and I've seen Luka get yelled at in timeouts by Slovenian coaches. Like he just takes it. It looks like a college coach. So I don't think he has a problem being yelled at or being coached hard. You know, he was 15 playing with adults. They were having to coach him hard. I think it was more just that Carlisle is a guy who's really into manipulation.
Well,
That's not just coaching hard. That's like he's a mind game, psychological warfare guy. And that I don't know that Luka was used to.
and I thought it was more about how he treated other people.
Right. You would hear that.
It was
I mean,
just kind of not a...
Like Dennis Smith Jr. That's what I remember hearing at the time, is that really bothered Luka. Like, how awkward is that? I mean, you know how that is when your boss is calling you out and your buddy's there, and you're like, dude, come on. We don't have a problem. It doesn't have anything to do with us.
Yeah, you've had bosses that you don't like how they treat other people, but they're fine with you.
Yeah.
And they might be fine with you because you're the superstar. You know, Luka's the superstar. Of course the coach is going to be kind of cool with him. But, yeah, to see how he treats those around him.
Yeah, and so it's just 2 strong personalities that were not going to work out in the long run. And I don't know if the general fan wants to say Carlisle should have stayed and Mavs would have been better with him. I don't know. But it was clearly not going to work, and that was just from Game 4, so I would imagine they had a lot of spats after that. This kind of details Luka's very go with the flow, didn't like being coached. They bring up Rondo and even Jason Kidd, and I was curious if this was a small reason why Carlisle recommended Kidd on the way out.
The Mavs got a glimpse of that when Smith missed a November 24 home game against the Celtics, an Eastern Conference contender.
So they're saying Luka was very comfortable playing point guard without Dennis Smith Jr., and so I think that's when they began to shop him a little.
In an otherwise phenomenal first quarter. If you tug at Doncic's leash, be ready for him to bark. The friction between coach and phenom about creative freedom was a consistent subplot during Doncic's rookie season. Carlisle had earned a reputation as a control freak, having clashed with accomplished veteran point guards Jason Kidd and Rondo about play calling, ultimately relinquishing the reins to Kidd and running Rondo out of town. Some of that type of tension developed between Carlisle and Doncic as well, but their on-court issues were more stylistic disagreements.
So do you bring Kidd in saying, look, Kidd had to face the same battles you did. Kidd knows what he didn't like about that kind of coaching philosophy. Was it just a buddy hire, kind of?
Absolutely.
Or just a former point guard?
Absolutely. Kidd was hired to be Luka's coach. Kidd was hired for Luka. I have a superstar who runs the team. Same thing. You know how to be a superstar. That's what we're all about, is the superstar. And that was part of our criticism, I think, when he first got hired, is just that, you know, the best coaches in general seem to be able to relate to the entire team.
Yeah, you just don't have that many guys who are super, super skilled who end up being great head coaches. You reference it all the time with Ted Williams, right? Like, just do what I do. They don't understand that people can't grasp the finer points of instruction like they can. But I don't know. I think this for Rick is great because he doesn't seem – he's probably still a little bit of an asshole, but he seems a little more fun now. Like this happening at the end of his career, whether it's not the end, but this happening in the later stages of his career, I love it. Like that people may remember him like for this because this Pacers team is fun and it's totally different than that Mavericks team.
And remember when
totally different,
You've cited this many times. When the Mavs did hire him, that was the result of a really in-depth coaching search where they were breaking it down analytic-wise, weren't they? On saying
crazy.
Who is the best coach that is out there?
Yeah, there was some writing about this. Roland Beach was a guy who used to work for the Mavs who owned a website called 82 Games, and they did, Cuban's description, it was on Bad Radio, of the coaching search was insane. Like running out of timeout numbers and looking at plus minuses of guys like how they played for their team as opposed to another team in the same season. It was thorough. And impressive, which is why it's a bit odd that the next time around the same guy, Mark Cuban, interviewed no one.
It was incredibly baffling.
There's no search whatsoever, and
right, it's guy I know.
They threw Dirk in there as a smokescreen. Not saying Dirk didn't want kid hired, but they kind of brought him in as cover. Like, well, look, Dirk's representing it. So
you like him? Yeah, I like him.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He
would have said that for Tyson Chandler.
Right. Yeah, and so.
Any of his buddies on that team.
Rick, now, I don't know. I get frustrated watching the finals. I watched quite a bit of the game last night just because I still have This Should Be Us. Like when I see Benedict Mathurin or TJ McConnell like doing crazy fun stuff, I'm like, that's what's fun about being in the finals. Those guys will never buy a drink in Indiana again type thing, That could have been –
and this team they have could have –
yeah, like –
could have beat Oklahoma City.
I was back
and been in the finals against Rick Carlisle.
Back in December before Luka got hurt, or even in January, you're thinking, boy, Najee in the playoffs. Like Najee could become our Deshaun Stevenson of 2025. Like guys who they're in the lore forever. And when I'm watching TJ McConnell steal inbound passes and put up threes, and that place is it's insane. The field house up there. They're beating the Thunder at their own game. Game one, I think you said, like, man, they just got lucky. Game two, they got walloped pretty hard. But, dude, they thoroughly dominated Oklahoma City last night, even though they were down 5 heading into the fourth.
Yeah,
and I think Rick has a lot to do with it. A lot to do with it. Because the Thunder are just a very hard team to disrupt, and his teams are capable of doing it.
Yeah, they got in their face a little bit. Miles Turner bullied Chet down the stretch, felt like.
And he had like 5 blocks, too.
So last clip for you. So we talked a little bit about this. Luka's step back, whether it was curated in Europe or whether he developed it his rookie year in the NBA. He says he had never done a step back before until the NBA, which I don't think is true.
It's not, but
okay.
He may have called it something else. But
sure. Carlisle hated it.
Hunted highlights to please his rapidly expanding base of Instagram followers. Carlisle also hated how often Doncic launched step-back threes, a shot the rookie took more often than anyone other than reigning MVP and scoring leader James Harden. He told him right to his face, "You can stick that step-back up your ass. It only works in Malaga and Venice," said Procopio, a Boston-bred wise-ass whose sense of humor didn't exactly endear him to Carlisle.
So, yeah, coach telling phenom Luka.
Well, here's the thing about that, and that's why I feel like maybe Rick eventually had to go. He was right. Luka's first couple years, he was not making that shot. It was a bad shot. He would take it. You might have remembered it being good because he made some big ones, but the numbers were there. That was a shitty shot for Luka, but as of, I don't know, I think last year, the year before, maybe the year before that, he was hitting it at a degree that was like higher than most people hit their normal threes. Like, it's become the most unstoppable shot, or one of in the game. But he might not have ever gotten to that point if Carlisle was always his coach.
Right.
Because Carlisle was trying to kill that shot.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to be able to take it to eventually make it.
Yeah, I think the creative liberties thing in the last clip kind of nailed it, where Luka may not have ever blossomed into what he is now if Carlisle would have remained his coach.
Yeah, and it would have been different. But I agree. I think Kid's been good for Luka. The crazy thing is we're
Besides
talking about
trading
this
him.
like it didn't work. Like, oh, was Kid the right coach for Luka? I don't know, man. They went to the finals 2 out of 3 years with wildly different rosters. Yeah, there were problems, but it was 100% working.
Right. And it was because, yes, you were not hired as X's and O's guy. No one is raving about Jason Kidd's matchups and all that kind of stuff. It was because he was hired to let Luka be Luka and bring the best out of that. And he did. It worked. But it worked.